There are no moral phenomena at all, but only a moral interpretation of phenomena. Friedrich Nietzsche. Welcome to this exploration of Friedrich Nietzsche's, or a work in which the German philosopher critiques the moral systems that have dominated Western thought for centuries. At the center of his critique lies Christendom, which Nietzsche believed had twisted human nature and suppressed individual strength, vitality, and freedom. In this video, we'll dive deep into Nietzsche's examination of Christianity's flaws and how it shaped human psychology and morality. We'll explore how Christendom, in Nietzsche's view, created a moral system that shackled human potential, celebrating weakness over strength and obedience over self-mastery. Let's start by understanding the context of and what Nietzsche was attempting to do. Published in 1881, marked a turning point in Nietzsche's intellectual journey. It represents his early forays into a critique of Western moral values, with a special focus on Christianity. Here, Nietzsche didn't yet develop the concept of the Übermensch or the eternal recurrence, but the seeds were being planted. He saw Christendom not merely as a religion but as a force that had dominated Western moral thought for nearly 2 millennia. Nietzsche believed that Christianity, particularly its moral teachings, had become decadent, promoting values that were in direct opposition to life, vitality, and the natural instincts of humanity. Nietzsche sought to break free from the dogmatic shackles imposed by this moral system. He wanted to humanity much like the dawn breaks the darkness of night. But how did Christendom, in Nietzsche's view, suppress the individual spirit? To understand Nietzsche's critique, we need to look at how Christian morality functions. At the heart of Christianity lies the concept of original sin, the belief that humans are born sinful, inherently flawed, and in need of salvation through divine grace. Nietzsche saw this as a direct attack on human nature itself. By declaring humans sinful from birth, Christianity fostered a sense of guilt and shame. It taught people to despise their natural instincts, their desires, and even their bodies. Instead of celebrating life, Christianity, according to Nietzsche, revered suffering, martyrdom, and self-denial. Nietzsche writes, "The Christian resolution to find the world ugly and bad has made the world ugly and bad." Christian morality, in Nietzsche's view, upended natural values. Strength, power, and assertiveness, qualities that promote life and self-overcoming, were labeled as evil. In contrast, meekness, humility, and submission were elevated as virtues. Nietzsche called this a slave morality because it catered to the weak, encouraging submission rather than mastery. But this wasn't just a critique of Christianity as a religion. Nietzsche argued that Christendom had deeply embedded these values into the very fabric of Western society, shaping law, politics, and culture. Central to Nietzsche's critique of Christendom is the ascetic ideal, the idea that self-denial, renunciation of pleasure, and rejection of worldly desires bring one closer to God. This ideal permeates much of Christian thought, from the lives of saints and monks to the figure of Christ himself, who suffered on the cross for the redemption of humanity. Nietzsche viewed this ascetic ideal as fundamentally life-denying. He saw it as a rejection of the body, of joy, and of the physical world in favor of an abstract spiritual ideal. By venerating suffering and martyrdom, Christianity turned life itself into something to be transcended, something inferior compared to the next world. Nietzsche claims that this denial of life leads to a weakening of humanity. When people are taught to reject their natural desires, they become passive, unable to assert themselves or embrace the richness of life. Instead, they look for meaning in suffering, believing that they will be rewarded in a heavenly afterlife for enduring earthly pain. This, Nietzsche believed, was a tragic mistake. By focusing on an imaginary paradise, Christianity distracted people from the one life they had, this life, here and now. Nietzsche didn't only critique Christianity for its philosophical underpinnings, he also looked at its real-world consequences. The moral system of Christendom, he argued, led to the suppression of human creativity, freedom, and potential. By promoting guilt, fear, and submission, Christianity stifled the human spirit. It encouraged a herd mentality, where individuals were expected to conform to rigid moral standards rather than think for themselves. Nietzsche described this as the tyranny of the weak, where the moral values of the weak and oppressed were imposed on the strong and capable. This wasn't just a hypothetical critique. Nietzsche saw these dynamics play out throughout history, with the church wielding immense power over people's lives. From the medieval era's inquisitions to the later moral policing of art, literature, and science, Christianity often suppressed innovation and free thinking. But what did Nietzsche offer as an alternative? Nietzsche calls for A. This means questioning the moral assumptions handed down by centuries of Christian influence. Nietzsche wanted people to embrace life, strength, and individuality, rather than submit to a moral code that he saw as life-denying. He didn't offer a rigid set of rules or a new moral system. Instead, Nietzsche challenged his readers to think for themselves, to explore their own values and desires without guilt or shame. In a way, is a manifesto for personal freedom. Nietzsche believed that by rejecting the oppressive moral systems of Christendom, humanity could once again become powerful, creative, and life-affirming. He saw the dawn of a new era, where individuals could embrace their true nature without fear of divine retribution or societal condemnation. But what would this new morality look like? Nietzsche's vision for the future was one where individuals would no longer be bound by the restrictive moral codes of the past. He envisioned a world where people could explore their full potential, intellectually, artistically, and physically. This wouldn't be a world without morality, but a world with a new kind of morality, one that affirmed life rather than denied it. He called for a future where people would celebrate strength, creativity, and vitality, embracing the fullness of human existence. In this new era, Nietzsche believed, humanity could become what it was always meant to be, free, powerful, and self-determined. Friedrich Nietzsche's was a bold critique of Christendom and the moral values that had dominated Western thought for centuries. He believed that Christianity, by venerating weakness and promoting guilt, had led humanity down a path of self-denial and passivity. But Nietzsche didn't just criticize, he also called for renewal. He urged his readers to break free from the chains of tradition, to reevaluate their values, and to embrace the power of life itself. In the end, was not just a critique of Christianity, it was a call to awaken, to step into the dawn of a new era where human potential could flourish without the weight of guilt and repression. So, let's heed Nietzsche's call. Let's awaken to the possibilities of life, to the dawn of a new day where we are free to explore our true nature, unencumbered by the moral systems of the past. Nietzsche's influence extends far beyond the 19th century. Today, his ideas resonate in philosophy, literature, psychology, and even popular culture. His critique of morality, particularly Christian morality, has inspired thinkers and movements that question the status quo, encouraging a reevaluation of values in various domains of life. From existentialism to postmodernism, Nietzsche's call for freedom and self-affirmation has found new life in movements that promote individual empowerment and the breaking down of traditional structures. Whether it's the rejection of oppressive societal norms or the celebration of human creativity, Nietzsche's ideas continue to shape the way we think about morality and the human experience. In a world still grappling with questions of identity, freedom, and ethics, Nietzsche's critique of Christendom serves as a reminder that the values we take for granted are not set in stone. They can and should be questioned. Friedrich Nietzsche.